Hi guys, welcome to Healthy Living with Vincent, Healing by Design. Today I am going to be talking on the subject that I have titled Adverse Childhood Events and how it links to the diseases that comes up during adulthood. Now, a lot of times we have situations where people have diseases or chronic illnesses that actually traces back to the trauma that they had when they were little. There are researches and there are studies that supports this fact. Now, a lot of times when you see yourself or when physicians see you and they're trying to diagnose or treat a condition, a lot of times they neglect to look at the trauma that you have possibly had in your life, and how it relates to the condition that you are going through. And so when they treat you, sometimes you don't get well. Why? Because the deep-seated emotions have not been dealt with, and so you still end up being sick. And so today I'm just going to dive a little bit into it to give you an overview or just create an awareness. That means that you may have to start looking back or tracing back to some of the reasons why the condition that you have or the disease that you experience is what it is today. And so what is an adverse childhood event? Basically, an adverse childhood event is simply a trauma that you have experienced when you were little. So it could be a trauma in the area of neglect. It could be an attachment trauma where you did not attach very well to your care providers, which is your parents, or it could be an abusive upbringing, or it could be a sexual abuse issue that you experienced when you were little, and the list goes on. Now, a study that was done in the mid-1990s with about 17,000 adults who were being obviously studied to see the link between the disease that they had and the fact that whether they had an adverse effect or event that happened that could be linked. And in this experiment, it was found that most of the people who had certain chronic conditions like heart conditions, like autoimmune conditions and thyroid issues and all the issues that people have, a lot of it, about 50% of them had gone through adverse trauma in their childhood that is actually linked to the conditions that they have experienced. And so their biography when they were little has now been changed into their biology. And so all the physiological changes, the body has kind of found a way to set itself to manifest these diseases as a way to survive, And so one of the ways this happens is that when you go through trauma, you go through changes in your system. With this concept we call epigenetics. Now, epigenetics is simply modifications in your gene that is not necessarily a change in your DNA structure or sequence in any way, that is then passed on or inherited either by yourself or you pass it on to your children. Now, a lot of this happens through an epigenetic change that happens in the glucocorticoid receptors in your brain as you go through this trauma in childhood. And when this happens, a lot of times the change will then cause the body to reset itself. Your neuroendocrine system generally gets reset, and when it gets reset to manifest a condition that is linked or tries to negate or solve the problem on the emotional level to make you then exhibit some behaviors and some conditions that is equivalent to what happened. And so people who kind of go through certain addictive behaviors have found that they are doing what they are doing, or they are smoking or drinking or involved in certain negative behaviors as a result of what happened when they were children. So people can be very obese, and it can be traced back to some events that happened in their childhood, like sexual abuse. And so they are obese because they want to protect. It's a protective mechanism to help ward off men from them. Some people behave in various ways. Some people, they give so much. They are overgivers. They care for other people more than themselves so very often, simply because they had attachment problem with their parents. They were neglected when they were little, And there are certain diseases like leukemia. Leukemia is simply sometimes it's a condition that happens in people as a result of self-worth. Maybe their parents told them they were not good enough, and the more they kept telling them that they were not good enough, that this person is better than them, or their brother or sister is better than them, they end up getting into situations that leads them into diseases like leukemia. People who have bladder cancer. Bladder cancer people, most of time, could be linked to a territorial problem. Like we say animals urinate. Animals mark their territory. The same thing. A territorial problem could be a cash flow issue in the family when the person was young, and so many different conditions like breast cancer a lot of times has been linked to unforgiveness. When you've not forgiven, something traumatic happened and you've not forgiven and you're still carrying it in you, it could directly reset the system and lead to conditions of that nature. People with autoimmune conditions, a lot of times it's all due to certain abusive environments that they were in when they were little. Now, this could also happen even in adulthood. You could have an epigenetic expression of genes that is due to trauma. So people who suffer anxiety, depression, a lot of times it is a case of a trauma of neglect. It's a trauma of not being wanted, or a trauma whereby they couldn't forgive an event that has happened in their life. And all these things can alter the genes. And so sometimes when you are on a healthy program, or you are trying to eat well, trying to exercise, drink more water, expose yourself to sunshine, and do all the good things that could give you good health. And sometimes you find that you cannot cope with the program that you are on, simply because your body and yourself it's already set up in a way to sabotage your efforts of getting well. Until you deal with those underlying emotional events that happen during childhood, you are likely to fail in an attempt to get well. So some of the solutions will be obviously to first of all find out whether you have had certain adverse childhood events. Have you been neglected? Have you been abused physically, verbally? Have you been through certain? Did you lose? Some people they lost their parents when they were little. Certain serious trauma happened in their childhood that they have not been able to overcome. So you need to start looking at things that happened when you were little. You can journal some of the things, find out what happened. Was there an adult there when it happened? Have you spoken to anybody? Sometimes you may have to find somebody trustworthy to speak to them about what you've gone through, so that they can help you. People who are non-judgmental, people who you can trust with your secrets and the things that you have gone through. And sometimes it might also need your belief in God. Faith plays a vital role in shaping up your belief system and helping you cope with the situation and overcoming the things that has happened in the past and the one that are yet to happen in your life. The Bible says that cast all your burdens onto him. Who? God, for he cares for you. So once you can get into that frame of mind, that belief, that spiritual place that brings peace into your life, that will help you. Those who are carrying unforgiveness, some people say, I can never ever forgive my dad. Some people say, I can never ever forgive my mom. I can never ever forgive my sister or my brother. Listen, these things are shaping up or modifying your genetic makeup, and it's causing you to manifest certain behaviors and certain diseases that no amount of treatment can take care of it, or no amount of supplements or good eating can help you until you have dealt with those things. If you need to forgive somebody, please go ahead and forgive them. It is a therapeutic activity that will help bring you out of that condition you are suffering from. Also, there are things you could do, because once you've gone through an epigenetic change, due to the ACE or the adverse childhood event that happened, there are certain physical changes that will occur. Especially, you could have gut permeability issues that could then lead on to autoimmune conditions. And so that means that you may need to heal that gut. You may need to start considering the kinds of food you are eating. You may need to reduce foods that cause inflammations in your gut to help reduce the leaky gut, or heal the leaky gut. When you might need to introduce some probiotics to help that gut. And it's been found that sometimes probiotics alone could help you with the issues of anxiety, depression, and worry just by putting some probiotics in your gut. So these physical changes that occur as a result of the epigenetic change that brought the disease, you may need to also use physical means to also help those conditions. Apart from the emotional fixing and the spiritual fixing that you would doing, you might need some physical intervention. So you might need to eat well, yes, cut down sugar, drink more water, expose yourself to sunshine, take good supplements to help you with your protocol, and then gradually you will be having a holistic approach to health and healing, and that could help you to become well again. So this video is only to bring an awareness of the link between adverse childhood events, trauma, and adult onset of illness. Once you know that there is something like this, you may want to take a step back, especially those who are going through conditions presently as I'm speaking that may need to forgive people. Please, forgiveness is the single act that brings about healing. If you don't forgive, you are not forgiven, and that means that you will be held by those emotional effects that unforgiveness brings in you. You may not be aware of them. Some of them are unconscious until you start to write things down and you start to reflect on the things that could be the cause of your condition that you are suffering from. And so I'll be ending this video here. It's a very short video. There is more to it than what I have said, but I want you to go online and start to Google, find out what is my ACE score, your adverse childhood event score. It's online. The original experiment that was done, the questions that were used, the questionnaire is online. You can go attempt the questionnaire and see what your score is. The higher your score, the higher the possibility of the fact that the condition or those conditions you are going through are linked to what happened when you were little. And so on that note, I will encourage you all to do exactly what I've said until I meet you on my next video. I encourage you to share this video with your friends and family, and hopefully subscribe to this channel, as we will be bringing you more videos as we step into the new year. I wish you guys all a prosperous new year, a healthy new year coming 2018, and hopefully at some point our path will cross. Take care and God bless you. Shalom. Bye.